One night before we were supposed to get the money in the bank, we get a phone call and the deal was off. We were in the middle of COVID. We were in a situation where we did the math that at zero revenue, we could not survive more than 3 to 4 months.
You're 25, you work for a multinational, you're living in the south of France,
Yes.
and you're not liking it. You want to come back to India and work harder.
We realized that legally it was, not allowed to work more than 35 hours a week. When I asked my boss for a permission to come on a weekend, he got very upset.
तो आप वो Indians हो जो सबका नाम खराब करते हैं. Tell us what the kernel of the idea starts from before you go mass consumer.
People are opening multiple browser windows or tabs to do the same search on 3 OTAs, 2 airlines. So we built this meta search engine that would, crawl or use their APIs to give you where the best deals were, and then we would lead you to them to buy.
You almost finish each other's sentences. So that chemistry is really there. One thing that really annoys you.
Hard to, have a discussion that's not very objective because he's the one who's more data, numbers, and objective driven at times.
Sometimes, I have to control his positivity about certain things. Hold on, this might not.
Welcome to this very special episode of the Disruptors, and the duo that I'm speaking today to know each other for nearly 3 decades, have been in business together for nearly 2, and first began thinking about an idea that seems very, very obvious right now. I mean, everyone flips open their phone and books their ticket, whether it's for a train, bus, flight, etc. In 2007, that was not necessarily the case, isn't it? Welcome, Aloke Bajpai and Rajnish Kumar, to this episode of The Disruptors, both
Thank you.
founders and CEO, co-CEO of ixigo.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us
on the show.
So thank you so much for coming down. So paint us the picture of what's happening in 2007 when ixigo is beginning as an idea. What is the thought? What is the concept?
Well, 1 year even before that, right, we are having these late night conversations, Rajnish and I, about the fact that, it's probably the best time to go back to India and do something, given that, and we were working in Europe together, so just a little bit of background, both of us went to IIT, we were wingmates in hostel, rooms next to each other, and then got our first job break at the same company, which was Amadeus in Europe, in travel tech, were flatmates there. And then I went to B school, wanted to come back to India post B school because
I didn't go because I didn't have the money, so I stayed back.
You still landed up at Amadeus.
Yeah.
So I think it was around that time, and we had watched the Steve Jobs commencement speech, and I'd seen Swades, so all those triggers were there. But I think we really wanted to come back and do something here.
So one second, let me paint this picture. You're 25, you work for a multinational, you're living in the south of France.
Yes.
And you're not
absolutely.
liking it. You want to come back to India and work harder.
Yeah, I mean, in fact, when we started working there, we realized that legally it was, not allowed to work more than 35 hours a week. Yeah. And that was such a bummer for us. And when I asked my boss for a permission to come on a weekend, he got very upset, and he said that, why do you want to do that? Like, go and enjoy at the beach on the weekend. But we still insisted, and we were eventually able to get a special permission.
आप वो Indians हो जो सबका नाम खराब करते हैं, which is why they protest against immigrants taking jobs. You are the guys who go there and say, I want to come on a weekend and spoil it for everyone else.
I know, we just thought that we probably arrived there like 2 decades earlier than we should have. And it kind of disillusioned us a little bit. But I think, those were some of the reasons. One was this whole thing about doing something new in life, like something that could impact like millions of lives, challenging the status quo that we were living in. And obviously, in the backdrop of an opportunity or an idea that you see that, back there in India, travel was booming. There were like lots of OTAs and new airlines that were kind of forming up. And travel itself was something that we were really passionate about. We used to travel a lot, even when we were in Europe. And so we thought, all of this together was it all kind of was brewing up, right? And it had to happen. So we said, okay, that's it.
So the kernel of the idea starts with a B2B platform. Tell us what the kernel of the idea starts from before you go mass consumer.
Yeah, so actually when we started and we named it Travenues, because travel plus avenues, we were still exploring multiple ideas. But
and the French influence was still there.
And the French influence was still there, so Le Travenues. But we actually zeroed down on an opportunity which today is known as meta search, but essentially involves helping travelers find where the best deals are. And this is the desktop era of the internet. So you're talking 2007, 10 to 12 million internet users in India. People are opening multiple browser windows or tabs to do the same search on 3 OTAs, 2 airlines,
and
all
compare.
Of that, and comparing. So we built this meta search engine that would, crawl or use their APIs to give you where the best deals were, and then we would lead you to them to buy. So that was the initial idea when we started. In 2007, we launched that in June. And by the way, we didn't have a lot of capital, so both of us were nearly broke when we started the company.
In fact, we were in debt, probably.
Yeah, I still had my B school loan to pay off. It still had some family obligations to pay off. And I think in hindsight, it was not a decision that we ran an Excel sheet on and felt good about.
Yeah.
But we were very passionate about whatever we were doing, and we were giving it our entire sort of heart and soul in building it out. And we saw early growth primarily because of word of mouth, because there was nothing like that. I mean, you would...
So Skyscanner, etc., were not opportunities at that time?
I think at that time, we were the leading meta search in India. We were the first and the leading meta search in India, for many years from there, until we actually found our next big growth avenue in 2013.
But between 2000, when I look back at your history, you have not one but two big crises that could have put your business into extinction.
Well, more than two, I guess.
A lot more than two.
So two big ones which come to mind. One is you start right before the GFC, global financial crisis. You do a pivot and then you have COVID come in. So I don't know about the other crisis, we'll learn about it through this interview. But you start off and then the global financial crisis hits. How does that work?
That was a crazy story. So I think we were 24 hours away from signing a term sheet. No, signing actually the definitive agreements and probably wiring the money in the bank, because all the other stuff was done already. And by that time, we were in that phase where you are thinking that, oh, you know what, you've made it big, you've raised a big round, and you are in that growth phase, so we kind of spend a lot of money on marketing, and we were almost on the verge of kind of running out of cash. And then the GFC happened. So one night before we were supposed to get the money in the bank, we get a phone call and the deal was off because Lehman Brothers had collapsed. And we had no idea of how to deal with that kind of a crisis, because it was the first time something like this had happened to us. So we went to the team and we told, here's the situation. We'll probably run out of money in 2 to 3 months. And so we'll have to let go of at least half of you. And the team really appreciated the fact that they just thought that, we had answers to all the questions, but that's what people always think about founders, but sometimes they don't. And, when they saw us that vulnerable, that's when they kind of, rose up to the occasion, and they came back to us and said that, you know what, you don't have to do that. Give us some time and we'll figure out something.
Wow.
And so
how many, what's the size of the team at this
about
point?
23 people.
20, yeah, less than 25 people.
23, 24 people. So there's this engineer who was our junior from ITK. So he went back into a room with the rest of the people and then came out 30 minutes later and said that, you know what, we've all decided to take 50% salary cut to survive through this. So you don't have to let go of anybody. We'll go through this together and, we'll survive.
And I think that moment changed everything for us. And it has become our defining moment in all crises to come, ever.
How many of the original 23 are still with you?
Probably one of them.
One.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
they
that was
stuck
a
around.
long time ago.
No, it was
That was a
no,
long
fair
time
enough.
ago.
It's nearly 20 years ago. So they stuck around, and then, you get through
Yes.
that crisis, and then your next big pivot comes in 2013.
2013 was I think a groundbreaking year for us, because when we went back to the drawing board saying, okay, now we are out of that crisis, what do we build? How do we build a large company? We realized that perhaps everyone was just playing this market wrong when it came to online travel. And the insight came from the fact that the penetration of air in the country was so low. It's still, just above 4%, right?
Yeah.
On the train side is where we believed, we should place our bet, because if you think about how India travels, it's, for most Indians, train is the dominant mode of transport to go from one city to another. It's not air.
I agree, but in 2013, you are placing a bet that yes, most Indians travel by train, and most of those Indians, or enough of them, will come to an app or a website or an OTA to book that ticket and not go to the station or not call up an agent. That was not
Absolutely.
necessarily the case.
It wasn't, but our goal wasn't necessarily to sell ticket to all those people, because when we looked at that market segment and the people who were traveling in train, there were lots of other problems that they were facing every day. They were facing this problem of checking their PNR status every day, several times a day, because 30% tickets are waitlisted in India, which means that there's this problem that they always have this fear in their head that whether their ticket will get confirmed or not on the date of travel. And if they forget to cancel, they lose the money, etc., etc. So we started by solving those problems, and we just built a simple app which would just, read your SMS with your consent, of course, and then start tracking your trip automatically. And then as soon as your ticket would get confirmed, you'll get a notification. And so this became one of the biggest growth engines for us. And then we thought that we were up to something because we were growing like crazy. And at some point, we reached this situation where we had so many people checking PNR status on our apps. We had so much data about PNR status that we figured out that, why not solve the next big problem, which is, can we predict whether a waitlisted ticket would get confirmed or not? Because then that would kind of influence.
How do you even do that? How do you even do that?
Because we had so much data, I mean, it might sound ridiculous that 10 years ago we built an AI model to predict whether a waitlisted ticket would get confirmed or not, but we actually did in 2015.
In 2015, you built an AI model to predict whether tickets would get waitlisted or not. And we're talking about this now 10 years later when AI is on top of everything.
Yes, AI was not very sexy back in the days. All of this started by a very small journey we started in a room, because at that point of time, we didn't really know what's gonna happen with our business. And technology had reached an inflection point where mobile had just arrived. There is always this fear in the minds of companies that, if we are a larger company, if you are the incumbent, if you have an organization which has legacy systems or, which has the organizational inertia, etc., then there is this looming threat of some other small company coming up with a small bunch of team using that technology.
Correct.
As a foundational
So at this
code.
time, you're a desktop website service.
Yes, we are primarily a desktop service focusing only on flights, being a meta search model. So this was the old company. What we did is that we said that before there is a new company or a startup that comes and disrupts us, the only way to save ourselves from that disruption is to disrupt ourselves. And so that disruption has to start from inside. So what we did is we created a new company inside the old company. In fact, I logged myself in a room with 3 of my best engineers. It was a meeting room, but it had a glass door. So you could see it, but the door was locked with key, so nobody could get inside. And it was soundproof, so nobody could bug us either.
No one could get outside also.
No one could get outside either, because I had the keys. And so we sat there for like 60 days straight. We learned Android, and we built this app that I was talking about.
60 days straight.
Yes, 60 days we learned. Obviously, it took us like 15, 20 days to learn Android first. And then we started building some apps.
It's hackathon mode.
Yeah,
Wow.
and so this app came out. And as you can see today, that app is what drives the core business of the company. So if you think about it, the old business, as we know today, meta search business or the desktop business, is dead. What we built in that new co is the new business, because we were successfully able to replace the old co with the new co.
What is really coming through from your stories so far is longevity of relationships and trust that you build with the team that you work around you. So for example, as co-founders, for both of you to stick around for so long, because you speak to a lot of companies which start off with maybe 3-4 people very passionate about it, and then they go their separate ways. No, it doesn't necessarily mean that a partnership that has started well will sustain. You have that going for you. You have also a very core group of employees at your initial phase which held on to you. Where do you think that comes from? What is the secret there?
Yeah, I think, look, first of all, I was lucky to, run into Rajnish in the hostel, and we were good friends, and we would always be passionate about technology and sharing. That hasn't changed even now. Like, we would share the latest cool thing we've discovered and be excited about it and how we could use it. What we learned along the way is that, the transparency that comes in crisis that Rajnish talked about, as well as, the involvement and empowerment that you have in decision making, right? And, just to give you small examples, like till date, we don't have cabins in our office, right? The company is now public, it's big, but it's just a cultural thing that we don't believe in. Like, we want people to not to have to knock on the door and to have the ability to just approach us and talk to us if they want to, right? And I think some of those choices in building the culture, whether it was putting empathy at the center of our cultural values, which, by the way, plays out right from the way we obviously treat our employees or exigems, or the way we also treat our customers. That empathy flows through when you talk about putting it at the center of who you are. And then the obsession of always wanting to build the best customer experience. I think that intense obsession.
But that everyone has.
Well,
I've never spoken to a founder who's saying, I'm not obsessed with building good customer experience.
And I know what you're saying. I think everybody says we are customer first, we're customer focused, we're customer obsessed. I think it's very hard to live up to that. And what it involves is a lot of sacrifice. And I'll tell you what, we have the kind of habit every day in the morning to wake up and read all the 1-star reviews that we get on each of our apps.
You do that?
We still do that at this scale. And if there is a customer problem at 2 a.m. which is not getting solved, we will be some of the first people to escalate it internally, saying, why is this customer still unhappy? I think it flows top down, right?
I'll tell you a story from COVID, right? Obviously, you can't say some things, but if you don't walk the talk, it doesn't matter, right? So we were in the middle of COVID. I clearly remember that there were some reports that come on Slack about it, and we saw like zero. It was zero bookings. There was a day when we actually clocked 0 bookings. And I was sitting, and my Apple Watch gave me a notification. It said that my heart rate was above 120, and I was just sitting. And we just had a call because we were both sitting at home, so we called each other, and we were like, what do we do now? And then suddenly, this barrage of phone calls started to come from customers because everybody wanted to cancel their ticket. Everybody.
Get a refund.
We had zero. That was the day when lockdowns
were announced. Okay. Everybody was calling us. We were in a situation where we did the math that at 0 revenue, we could not survive more than 3 to 4 months, 6 tops. Okay. First of all, we decided we'd not let go of a single person, because if we let go of them, they had nowhere to go. They wouldn't find a job because nobody was going to give them a job, right? It's a humanitarian crisis. Second is, we also decided that we have to refund the customers. So first of all, we didn't let go of anybody. Second, we said we are going to refund the customers from our book, because airlines would also go under if we were waiting for them to give us the refunds, right? So we actually depleted, like, it was not the smartest move, but we depleted some of the cash that we have to give refunds to customers. We even hired some temp employees on payroll to cater to the phone calls that we were getting. So all in all, we did some of the most stupid things that possible.
Actually, we were on customer support for a few days.
Yeah, you were taking calls.
Yeah, we were taking calls. We had all hands on deck. We asked every employee to be on customer support.
We had only 2 kinds of teams at that point of time. One was a COVID support team, which was helping everybody in the company and their friends and families with COVID-related issues. And one was helping customers with customer support calls. That's the only thing we were doing. We were not working at that point of time at all.
So okay, so this is great. So like I said, two major crises: global financial crisis, COVID. We've talked about those. Cut to the situation right now. Is AI going to be the next crisis for the industry, or is it going to be, you know, something that you can harness the power of? Because I'm just wondering, very soon, a lot of what you're doing, and you develop those early models, is something which will get automated for a lot of people on their phones.
Absolutely. I mean, I think I'll go back to what I was saying, which is that every technology inflection point will create a massive disruption risk for people, especially for incumbents and large companies. And AI is no exception. In fact, AI is probably the biggest inflection point in the history of humanity.
Yeah.
And so the risk of disruption is proportionately larger as well, which means that companies need to prepare themselves for this. Like, I mean, so if a disruption happens, you only have two options: become the company that gets disrupted, or be the company that creates that disruption. So we never had option A. We were always, we knew that we only had one option. If any inflection point comes, we have to be the company that creates that disruption. And so, like I said, if a company needs to survive this, they need to create a new co inside the old co.
So what are you doing about it right now?
We have a new co inside the old co, which is working and preparing for that disruption. In fact, all of this ties back to, you know, our AI strategy as well, which has three legs, right? One is efficiency, second is revenue, and the third is disruption. And the disruption strategy is what will prepare us for what's going to happen, right? Because when that happens, we don't want to be the company that gets disrupted. We'd rather be the company that creates that disruption.
So what does that look like from a customer experience?
See, I think what we're saying is that every time there's been a wave of disruption, whether it was internet, mobile, UPI, or even the fact that we chose a different go-to-market with a train-first approach, I think we took a bigger bet on ourselves and said, hey, can we be a company that thinks of this more as an opportunity than a threat, right? Back in 2017, before anybody talked about chatbots as they do today, we were already building one. We took a very early stab on saying, okay, this is a technology that we believe will be transformative in delivering customer experience, not just from a cost perspective, but actually doing it faster and better than a human can.
Okay.
Right? And today, you know, we publish these numbers every quarter. More than 60% of our calls, almost 65% now, are actually being done by AI agents, right?
Have
both
you had to
inbound
let
and
go
outbound.
of people as a result? Do you see hiring less people?
I don't think it's about hiring lesser people or letting go of people. I think efficiency with AI is all about giving the superpower of AI in the hands of every employee that you have.
Yeah, but there'll be fewer employees.
There will be the same number of employees. Think about it this way, like if I have 100 people today, and let's say AI makes me 10x more efficient, then what that means is that I can actually build 10 times more stuff. My roadmap can have 10 times more things. I don't necessarily need to hire more people. With the same number of people, actually I can do a lot more than I used to do
But
earlier.
not necessarily the same people. Same number of people, yes. But
Yeah, same number
so
of people.
would same number of people, but not the same people. I'm just trying to understand, would jobs like customer support, not in just your field or company, but across the board, be dead very soon?
Well, I think they'll transform. I mean, you know, there will be a portion of customer support still that requires human intervention. In fact, people will pay a premium for it at some point because every company will throw chatbots at the problem, right? But I think the nature of what a customer experience support person does changes dramatically. And in our company, you know, for a lot of those roles, what they do today involves interacting with a lot of these AI agents.
Every such technology revolution, it takes away a lot of jobs, but it brings in lot more new jobs which are far less manual, far less mundane.
I agree, but it's not necessarily the same people who will do the new job. So
people have to evolve. They have to upskill themselves.
Agreed. So yeah, this is a long. So now, as we close up this conversation, you know, a little about both of you, because I can see you almost finish each other's sentences. So that chemistry is really there. Tell me one thing about the other that really you depend on, and one thing that really annoys you.
Putting us on the spot. I think if I talk about Rajnish, Rajnish is a visionary. He's able to predict trends many, many years before they even become trends. And he's been doing that since college days, so that hasn't changed. I think he's also someone who cares a lot about people and understands emotions very well. I think what annoys me, I think sometimes sometimes it's hard to have a discussion that's not very objective, because he's the one who's more data, numbers, and objective driven at times. And sometimes I go with my heart.
Rajnish, I hope you're not going to be so careful.
No, I mean, like on disagreements, I think what I would say is that I think we have more disagreements in good times than in bad times, because every time I look back in situations of crisis, we've had exactly the same idea of how to get out of that situation. So it's good that, especially in tough times, we agree on those things, because, otherwise we'll be dead by now. Aloke is very optimistic, and he's a very positive person, so he always looks at the optimistic side. Like, I like to shoot holes through an idea, and I'm slightly more pessimistic, so that kind of balances out.
So the one annoying thing is that he's too positive.
One annoying thing is that sometimes, I have to control his, positivity about certain things, that, this will work and we will be able to do this. And I'm like, hold on, this might not. But yeah, I mean, definitely one thing, we mutually also appreciate a lot is that I think it's very hard to find great people.
Good luck to both of you guys, and thank you so much for coming in on The Disruptor today and
Thank you so
sharing your story.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Here's to many, many more disruptions.